WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The name of the show is We Should Know. I'm JW Simmons, your host. We come to you on Star Communications TV, Channel 16, WCLN Radio, every week at 2:30 and 7 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday on Star TV, Channel 16. Today, we're talking with Erick Herring. Erick is the EMS Division Chief with Emergency Medical Services and Emergency Management here in Sampson County. Erick, you've been a guest on the show. This is not a new thing for you. You've been in the business over 25 years. In fact, I think we go back and known each other probably close to 30 years when you were volunteering everywhere.
Yes, sir. Long time.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming in and sitting down today.
Thanks for having me again.
A lot of stuff going on. When I talked to you about sitting down and having a conversation with us, one of the things I wanted to do is kind of get into some of the summertime accident things,
Right.
things that you guys face as paramedics in the county, and that you look at overall and say, are we equipped to do it? But there's other bigger picture items since we first talked that has happened. One of the most recent things is Uvalde and the school shooting in Texas. One of the things that I've had folks to mention to me is the preparedness of not only our EMS people, but the response on a medical level in the county. When we look at that kind of mass casualty, what do you focus on and what comes to your mind as far as preparedness is concerned?
JW, we're all the time trying to think ahead and try and stay ahead of any type of situation and to ensure that we are prepared for it. We have, with Sampson County EMS and our local law enforcement partners, have had active shooter training over the years. We've gone to the old Charles E. Perry School and actually done training. We've not been able to do that training for the last couple of years since COVID hit, but now that things seem to be winding down with that, we're going to try and get back into that training. So we're all the time trying to train and think and stay ahead. We try to beef up our supplies, our tourniquets, things of that nature. That is going to be, in an active shooter situation, is going to be one of the key pieces of equipment that we use. We've ramped up our amount of tourniquets on our ambulances, just trying to prepare or give all of our paramedics the tools that they would need in the event they are ever faced with that situation.
One of the things that strikes me is that, again, looking back at a lot of your track records, you started way back when it was volunteer only. You can remember the days of EMTs and
Right.
EMTDs, and now we're dealing with a full panel of paramedic level folks in the county, to include yourself and those folks you supervise. Tell us the importance of having paramedics in Sampson County versus somebody may say, well, just send somebody out here and help me get to the hospital.
Right.
It's far more than that. Tell us what paramedics not only do, but what their capability and capacity is.
It's a lot more complex, and years ago, like I said, when I first started volunteering, and all we had were volunteer squads in the county, we were EMT level, and a lot of, at that point, it was just loading the patient up in the back of the ambulance, seeing how quick we could get them to the hospital. Well, through research and science over the years, a lot of different situations, we've been able to prove and show that the quicker you start treating that patient in the field, not just throw them in the back of the truck and see how fast you can get them to the hospital, but the quicker we can start treating that patient in the field, the more positive outcome they'll have. So yes, currently Sampson County is paramedic level county. We dispatch a paramedic level truck to every single call, 911 call in the county. Our paramedics, we're able to administer a vast array of medications, pain management, cardiac related medications, respiratory related medications, a lot of the same medications that the emergency room physician is going to administer you as well. where at the EMT level, your amount of medications that you can administer is extremely limited, predominantly just limited to medication that the patient may be taking if they have their own nitroglycerin tablet or something of that nature. But our paramedics, our medication bag is full of just an array of medications. And one thing that, through the science and research, not just, in Sampson County, but nationwide, that we've been able to identify and show that there's a potential better outcome for the patient is like our cardiac arrest patients. Years ago, somebody was in cardiac arrest, we just threw them in the back of the truck and we tried to do CPR riding down the road at 70, 80, 90 miles per hour, trying to see how fast we get to the hospital. Well, what we've been able to identify was we were not doing good quality CPR. So through the research across the country, we've identified that if you'll sit on scene, if that paramedic sit on scene with that patient in cardiac arrest and you work that patient right there on scene, you're going to do a lot more accurate CPR. We're going to give the same medications that they're going to get at the emergency room. The physician emergency room he pretty much goes by the same protocols that we'll go by for someone in cardiac arrest. So they'll get the same medications, but we're doing a lot better quality CPR, focusing more on our patient, the treatment of the patient versus, while we're riding down the road at 80, 90 miles per hour and not able to do effective CPR. We've got measures in place where we're able to record and take all the data from every time we get through with a cardiac arrest call. We take all the data and we can review that data and we can tell how long we stayed off the patient's chest, and we're not doing compressions. We can tell all of our compressions, how fast we were going, how slow we were going, the depth we were going, how we're ventilating the patient, so we're able to analyze that in-house and, and we can immediately tell someone after they get through with a cardiac arrest call, we can sit down with them and look at it and show them, okay, here's the area where you were doing good and, here's the area that you need to improve on. We've focused a lot more on what we call team focused CPR, where, we just try and get a 4 or 5 at least personnel in there because of just a different task. We try to keep our people doing our compressions rotated out every 2 minutes. We've started dispatching our fire departments in the county to all of our cardiac arrest calls because, we know that the quicker someone gets started doing CPR on someone or quicker an AED gets deployed and utilized on a patient, the greater chance of a more positive outcome for that patient.
One of the things that strikes me is in the conversation I want to toss this in, I'm aware of an effort that's being done by Helping Hands and Chris Sessom's organization to get machines to the fire departments that helps with the cardiovascular. How important is that? And what are these machines that they're looking at? And how do they work?
That's extremely important. Those machines are AEDs. And an AED, essentially, it'll shock someone's heart once they go into cardiac arrest. If they're in, the proper rhythm, you deploy the AED, it'll shock the heart and hopefully get it back into a normal sinus rhythm. So the goal for the Helping Hands is they're trying to raise funds to help put AEDs on all of our fire department apparatuses, or at least a good portion of the fire trucks in the county. And hopefully we're not going to stop there. We're going to try and work on grants and different things to be able to get them on our law enforcement vehicles. So someone that goes into sudden cardiac arrest, the quicker we can get someone there with an AED and potentially get that patient's heart shocked, we can get it back into a normal sinus rhythm and it's a whole lot more favorable outcome for the patient.
The AEDs or electronic defibrillators, I think is maybe.
Automated electronic defibrillator.
So they would, the fire department folks would have those, but that's a piece of equipment that does not require extensive training like a paramedic has.
Right, it does not. The AEDs are pretty much foolproof. You open AED, open it, talks. You talks to you. It talks you through all the events that you need to do. It coaches you for everything that you need to do. Place the pads on. It's got a picture there showing you where to place the pads. It tells you, check for pulse. It tells you to start CPR. It'll tell you that, okay, it's time to shock. Hit the analyze button, hit the shock button. So it just walks you through the entire process. So, I don't think we have any here, but different places, a lot of businesses, and Walmart may have one hanging on Walmart, for anybody to use. A lot of churches in our area are starting to get AEDs and keep in their churches. And
is that something that is not only beneficial to the patient, but beneficial to you guys as you respond to that location? If you know that person is hooked up to one of these electronic devices, does that help you as you're getting there to try to start assessing the scene?
It does somewhat. We're going to bring our cardiac monitor out regardless and utilize our cardiac monitor because we can do a whole lot more with our cardiac monitor. We can actually see what type of rhythm they are in and just do a lot more things with our monitor. But with that AED on that patient, and we know that patient's maybe received a defibrillation or two or whatever, there's a good chance that heart's still in a viable rhythm, or what we hope is going to be a viable rhythm, so it's a huge benefit for that patient, that person that goes into sudden cardiac arrest.
It is. I think this is an interesting kind of paradox, because a lot of folks don't really understand that piece of equipment not only could save their life, but at least it could prolong it until like a trained paramedic could get there. And as you mentioned, have medicines and those kinds of things. We're going to take a short break. When we come back from the break, I want to kind of get into some of the other kinds of things that you anticipate and that you've faced over the years during these months we call summertime issues. I know a lot of people is concerned about heat and everything else, and we'll talk about those. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Erick Herring. He's the chief here of the EMS division in Sampson County. We'll be back in one moment.
If you run a business, you need sales. To get sales, you need customers. To get customers, you need exposure. Let our team of experts craft and produce the perfect video ad to reach your intended audience while making the most of your advertising dollars. Call 1-800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to contact our Star Communications production team and get your business moving to the next level.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on air. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're talking about emergency medical stuff, and we're talking with the division chief with Emergency Management here in Sampson County. Erick, you've been doing this for quite some time. Started out way back in Rollsboro Rescue and Salemburg Fire Department, and you worked through the volunteer process, and then you got into actually being and going through the training and all the education process to be a paramedic. And now you have oversight of the division of where paramedics work and where they go and that kind of thing. The first segment, we talked about a number of issues. I want to kind of circle back, and the question would be technology. How has technology changed the job that you do and the expectation of the folks that work with you over the past few years, and what do you see coming in the future?
Well, JW, one of the things that we at Sampson County are actually working with Duke University Hospital currently is we're providing them data on our cardiac arrest calls, and they are doing a pilot study program, research, whatever, on the utilization of drones to deploy AEDs to rural areas. So the thought process, and I think the hope and the goal is that, you call 911 for someone that's in cardiac arrest, and in that process of talking to 911 center, they're going to walk you through the steps of starting to perform CPR. But once we identify that, if all this study and everything works out, what we're looking at is taking a drone and flying an AED, automated external defibrillator, to the scene, wherever the 911 call is, and dropping, deploying that AED for whoever that bystander is on scene to go ahead and get that AED deployed on the patient.
Another critical piece in a very time-involved process, because
extremely.
Each one of those seconds that goes by is a life or death situation, especially cardiovascular stuff.
It's extremely time sensitive. When someone goes into cardiac arrest, they say within 4 to 6 minutes, brain cells start to die because of lack of oxygen. So it's extremely time sensitive. That's why we're Duke's doing the study with the drones. That's why we're trying to get AEDs deployed on multiple apparatuses throughout the county. It may take us 7, 8, 10, 12 minutes to get there on the ambulance, but if we got a fire department that's 2 miles down the road, we can dispatch that fire department and they've got an AED, or hopefully we'll have them in our law enforcement vehicles. There's a sheriff deputy riding, and he's just a mile or two down the road. He can respond, and hopefully one day we'll have enough AEDs to go around for everybody. I think it's just going to. Obviously, it all takes money. The AEDs are around $1,500 to $1,800 a piece, but I think that the more AEDs that we could get in this county, you'll see the cardiac arrest survival rate increase drastically.
Well, if somebody's interested in helping get those into fire departments and those kinds of things, they can contact Chris Sessoms with Helping Hands, or they could reach out to you at Emergency Management and say, where do we get tickets? I think they've got a couple of fundraisers coming up pretty soon here, and kind of get that information.
Oh, yeah. They can contact any of us at Emergency Management. Our office, phone number is 592-8996. Call our office. We can put them in touch with the ones they need to speak to.
I want to kind of look at the idea of emergency medical service, particularly during the summer months. We're facing now what is going to be a lot of folks are saying record hot days, in which we're talking heat indexes 100 or more, temperatures 99, 95, 96. We've seen this in the past. Sometimes I don't want to get people in a situation where they think, the world's burning up.
Right.
But some folks may not know how to deal with that. We're having a lot of folks move into North Carolina from different parts of the country. They might not be familiar with this weather pattern. As a person that's worked rural areas in farming country for your entire career, what should folks be aware of as it relates to heat?
The biggest thing people need to be aware of is dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, heat-related emergencies like that. Just this week here, we've had temperatures mid to upper 90s all week this week. And I know everybody's always been told, you're working outside, you need to drink, you need to hydrate, and so forth, which is 100% true. But what a lot of people don't understand and realize is I don't need to. It's obviously not going to hurt me, but I can't sit down here right now and drink 2 or 3 bottles of water and then go immediately outside and think I'm hydrated enough to go to work. And if I know that I'm going to be working outside today or tomorrow, I need to start hydrating 18, 20, 24 hours ahead of time and just stay hydrated. A good rule of thumb is you need to be drinking a gallon of water a day. And if you're one of these people that's going to be outside in the heat all day long, you probably need to be drinking closer to a gallon and a half, 2 gallons a day. I think another important thing that's going to be coming up is our football players. Our high schools are going to be starting football practice probably within, another month or so. It's going to be hot on these guys. These guys, they have got to stay hydrated well ahead of time. I help out at Lakewood High School some with the training, and we preach to these guys about, you got to stay hydrated, drink water, and to help prevent those cramps and stuff. But, it's a lot of people think, well, I'll start drinking today at lunchtime and I can go to football practice tonight or do whatever this afternoon. I can get outside and work in the yard this afternoon, but, you should have started drinking last night, or whatever. But, if people go to having dehydration, getting, heat exhaustion. You're going to feel, somewhat lethargic and just real drained and tired. Obviously, you're still going to be sweating a lot. If you get to that point, you need to get in the shade. You need to stop what you're doing, get in the shade, replenish, drink water. But for someone that maybe does not take care of that up front and they keep on going and pushing themselves, they're subject to a heat stroke. When you start having a heat stroke, you're talking about a true, real emergency at that point. Your body temperature can rise up to 104 plus at that point. And when you start having a heat stroke, you start, blurred vision, you're lethargic, and at that point you need to seek medical help. You need to call 911 or you need to get to the emergency room because that can be severely dangerous on you.
We recently had some folks on that are working with farm workers in the county, particularly the Mexican community. We've got a lot of folks that work in fields. Are these folks more conditioned? And do you respond to calls in which you have to treat folks that are actually doing farm work?
We'll occasionally have some, but not a whole lot. I think a lot of our farm laborers, they are more conditioned to it. They're out in it every day, so they are more conditioned to it versus, those of us that maybe work in an office all day and in the air conditioner and, we've worked a day 8 hours and we've been inside an air conditioner for 8 hours. Now all of a sudden we go home tonight and we get outside and go to work in our yard. It's a right. Pretty big shock to us. But the ones that are out in it every day, all day, they're more conditioned to it. I think they'll and if you'll notice, a lot of them, they'll have the long sleeves on, they'll have something on their head and trying to stay cool. But another thing with staying hydrated, people think just because they're drinking something, they're hydrating themselves. Well, soft drinks don't hydrate you. You need water, Gatorade, something of that nature. A soft drink will help a little bit, but that's not what you need. Teas and sweet drinks, that's not what you need to hydrate yourself to be outside and working.
So what I hear you saying is proportion yourself over time to prepare for that outside issue. Don't just try to consume that quart or half a gallon of water and then go out and figure you got it covered. And if you do start noticing some of the signs that you talked about, what's the best thing to do? Obviously, get in the shade quick. Do you need to sit down? Do you need to stand up? You need to dial somebody and let them know what's going on? What should you do?
Need to most definitely let somebody know what's going on. But just depending on how severe your symptoms are, get in the shade, sit down. If you're just exhausted and tired, you can probably just sit down, get in the cool air, the shade or whatever, and hydrate and just take a break. But when you get to the point where you're starting to get real lethargic, like you're about to pass out, blurred vision, things of that nature, that's when you're looking more toward a heat stroke, and that's when you definitely need to be dialing 911 and getting an ambulance out there or getting on the way to the hospital. That's when you need to definitely seek medical attention. And one thing I think people can keep in mind or need to keep in mind is, try to do your outside work in moderation if you can. Or try and do it early in the morning while it's still cool a little bit, or late in the evening while it's cool, and don't get out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon when it's the hottest part of the day and try and cut your grass today. If you can, wait till 6:30, 7 o'clock this evening, or get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and cut it or something of that nature, and just try to, if you're not used to working outside, be smart about it and just do it in moderation.
There's a number of issues that I want to try to get into that really seem to impact during the summertime. And some of those are everything from snake bites to ATV accidents to just simply car crashes are a bit different during the summer months. And I want you to kind of talk about that. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, maybe we can get into that conversation and cover some of the specific things that folks have thought about, but unless they're actually involved in it, sometimes it kind of is put by the wayside.
Right.
So We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll hit those issues. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us, and we're going to take another break. We're coming back and talking about some of the other issues that oftentimes happen, and for a lot part, the rural areas right here in Sampson County. We'll be back in a moment.
At home or away, knowing who is at your door is priceless. Star Communications is here to help with its doorbell security camera by Skybell. Live viewing and two-way audio equips you with the ability to always see and greet anyone that shows up at your door. If this is the kind of confidence you are looking for, call Star Communications today at 1-800-706-6538 to learn more about this intelligent security that you can always depend on.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. The name of the show is We Should Know. I'm JW Simmons, your host. We're talking with Chief Erick Herring, emergency management, specifically in the emergency medical division, oversight of paramedics here in the area. Erick, rural emergency medical care is something that has its own uniquenesses. And it happens, one of those things that we see a lot is during the summer times, folks are out. We see a lot of adults, teenagers, and kids on vehicles. And I'm talking all-terrain vehicles, and the data is out there. It can be one of the most dangerous experiences that you can imagine. Talk to us about some of the things you've seen in your career that folks need to be aware of, and some of them maybe just preventative things they need to be aware of, and how dangerous these things can be.
Right. I think a lot of times with ATVs, we just look at them as fun. As a society, it's something fun, and our kids, smaller kids, they have no concept of fear.
That's right.
It's a fun toy. Let me go get on it. Let me go. And as a parent, if you don't drill into that kid, wear your helmet, slow down, watch what you're doing. You're unfortunately, we're going to have those accidents at some point in time. And even as adults on ATVs, we get out there and we're wanting to show off, or we get out there and, you've had too much to drink today, but yet you're going to go get on the ATV and you're going to go flying across the field or through the woods. I think that, everybody just needs to be able to be respectful of what it can do. And as I said, kids, they just have no fear. So as the adult and the parent, you've got to instill in that kid every time. I know when I was growing up, I had a three-wheeler and a dirt bike, and I hated wearing a helmet riding that thing, but now my mama, I better not let her catch me riding it without a helmet, or I wouldn't have been riding it anymore. Yeah. Exactly, and so I think that's what as a parent you've got to do. And unfortunately, this day and time, I think some parents, they let their kids go and do whatever they want to, but
when you get called, when a paramedic gets called and that call comes in and it's dispatch says ATV accident, mentally, what are you preparing for as you go to one of these accidents? Obviously, you can't tell what you're going to have to do until you get there, but what are some of the kinds of typical injuries you see?
You're thinking, I was taught in class, expect the worst and hope for the best. So personally, if I'm going to something like that, I'm thinking, okay, is it, rolled over on top of them? Did they have a helmet on? Did they have a head injury? But probably one of the main things that we're going to see is limb fractures, arm fracture, leg fracture, things of that nature. But a head injury is going to be at the top of my mind. Okay, is this patient going to have a head injury? Did they hit a tree? Did they flip it and the ATV land on top of them? Things of that nature, So, you can have an array of traumatic injuries, from a broken arm to head injury to, to maybe the ATV land on top of your chest, and you have internal injuries, just there's a lot that can happen.
Some studies indicate in rural areas, one of the biggest issues occurs is farm equipment rollovers on people. I know in the past, I recall reading some years ago, and periodically we'll have those kinds of things happen here. Talk to us about the importance of operating farm equipment, and I think we've come a long way, so to speak, from years ago, and how we look at that.
We have, and I think tractors in the farming industry, thankfully, just like the automobile industry and a lot of other industries, they've gotten smarter and put more pieces in place to help protect the farmer, whoever driving the tractor. We've got seatbelts on tractor. We've got guards in place to help with rotating parts or moving parts, things of that nature. But we have had farming accidents where tractors have rolled over on people, whether it be, gotten too close to a deep ditch and rolled off into ditch, or whether they're trying to pull something and flip the tractor over backwards on them, or whether we've had, before where I've done it, no telling how many times when I was younger and farming, and where, the tractor won't crank and we're standing down on the ground beside the tractor and take a screwdriver and short it across the starter, and
it's in gear.
It's in gear and take off and run over you, but fortunately, the farming industry has gotten smarter and putting a lot more protection in place, guards in place, seat belts on tractors, roll cages on tractors, things of that nature, where we as a society, we just need to be smart and utilize those pieces of safety equipment. We need to utilize that seat belt. We need to leave those guards in place. It's so easy to, let me remove this guard because it allows me to get in here to this whatever easier and quicker, and then when I get whatever fixed, I'm in a hurry and I don't take time to put the guard back on. Things of that nature.
When I look at the kind of the journey going forward with things that happen in the summertime, a lot of it I think builds around what is considered response for a paramedic versus what is considered get in the back of the car and let's go to the emergency room. And one of those areas typically is obviously for what we're talking about with emergency kinds of things with all-terrain vehicles, you don't need to be moving that person.
Right.
So if we have that happen, unlike maybe a person that's got a heat experience, help us understand when and what we should do and what are the protocols that says you just get them in the car and go versus dialing 911.
Anytime, start off with, anytime you think someone needs an ambulance, call, regardless of how bad they're hurt or not. If you think they need it or you think you need an ambulance, call. But a lot of our accidents like that, we don't need to move the patient. Unless whatever presents a danger, maybe there's fuel leaking, gas leaking, something or whatever, and you have to move them for a safety reason, or there's a fire, and you literally have to drag them out of the way for safety reasons. But other than that, leave them in place. Let us handle it. When call 911, get us there, let us handle it. Because depending on what happened, how we're going to move the patient to ensure. We do not cause any additional harm to them. Someone's got a neck injury, back injury, something of that nature. We're obviously going to have place a seat collar on them. Put them on spine board to move them, get them loaded up in the ambulance, things of that nature. So, you could potentially do more damage to them and harm to them by trying to move them and such. So, if you're ever in doubt, leave them alone, call 911.
Because the reality is that you could end up with somebody paralyzed as a result of moving them because they didn't move them properly.
Correct. You could. Especially someone, if they tell you they're hurting in their neck or their back, leave them alone. Leave them be, and let us deal with it when we get there. We've been trained, obviously, as a paramedic or EMT. You've been trained on how to move these patients in the safest manner possible to reduce and minimize potential additional injury.
One of the things I want to touch on, and we may need to kind of go over into the next segment with it, we can, but I want to touch on this idea of, I'll just call it water water sports. I'll call it swimming. I'll call it rural area entertainment. You have seen, I'm sure, over your career, a number of issues related to swimming, whether it's creeks, ponds, backdoor pools, whatever. Tell us some of the things that we need to be aware of and caution us on what we need to think about before we engage in those activities.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I want people to be sure that you do is put fences and gates up around your pools if you have small kids. Kids, they're curious creatures. We're curious, especially a 2-3 year old. We've had those accidents in the county where, mom, dad, whoever, whatever, they get busy doing something for just a couple, 3 minutes. I mean, it don't take long, and the kid's gone and gone out the door, and they've gone to the pool, and they've climbed the ladder to the pool and fallen over in the pool, and they don't know how to swim, and they've drowned. So if you've got small kids around, and you may not have small kids, it may be your neighbor. Your neighbor may have small kids. Think about them, because that kid if that kid gets away from mom and dad, across the road, but he knows you've got a pool, and he's curious about that pool, he's going, let me go check this out. So I think that's one of my biggest safety concerns is for small kids. Be sure that you have gates up, fences up, or whatever. If you got a above ground pool, get your ladder up or something where the kid can't get over in it. And likewise, even as an adult, know that a lot of these pools, they're not real deep, and you trying to dive off in a pool, you're subject to hit your head and cause a neck injury, back injury, and if that were to be the case, leave that person alone. Don't just kind of roll them over and let us get there and help them.
We're gonna take another break. When we come back, I want to touch a bit on the water sports issue, and then I want to go into something that a lot of folks like to hear and better understand what to do, and that's various kinds of bites that may occur during the summertime, and this does include snake bites. But we'll continue the conversation on water sports when we come back, and then get into the snake bite issue. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking about things that you may face, you may have already faced during the summertime. We're talking with the Chief of Emergency Medical Service here in Sampson County, Erick Herring.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know's on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. My name is JW Simmons. I'm your host. The show airs on Tuesdays at 2:30 every Tuesday, with replays at 7 p.m. on Tuesday and Thursday on Star TV. We're also simulcast on Tuesday in the afternoon at 2:30 with WCLN Radio. I want to thank all those folks at the radio station that mentioned this show and what Star Communications is doing in its effort to kind of keep you informed on what's going on and talking to experts in certain fields that kind of give us all an update on what we need to do and understand. I continue to encourage you to send us your comments to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com, weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Also, Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina, for postcards, comments. I particularly have run into a lot of folks in the area that'll simply stop me at whether it's Lowe's or wherever in just passing and comment on different shows. I want to thank folks that have actually gone to the website. A show we recently had with Dr. Jonathan Lesser talking about solar energy and solar powered and alternative energy vehicles seem to strike a lot of folks' attention and things that you're interested in. Continue to let us know what's going on. Today we're talking about safety issues, and we're talking about summertime things with Erick Herring, who's the Chief of Emergency Medical Response here in Sampson County. Erick, you've been involved in this for a long time. We went from break to coming back in on this segment talking about swimming. You've mentioned a number of issues, and we went to break. We were talking about the possibility of folks deciding, well, I'm going to take a cool dip in the local stream, whether it may be a creek, whether it may be Little Kahari or wherever that stream is. What are some of the things folks ought to understand about deciding to jump into a natural stream or even a lake?
Yeah, I know we've all seen it, talked to people that's done it. We've gone down to the creek, gone swimming, jumped off the bridge in the water. I think one of the biggest things is, like this time of year especially, or the way it's been for the last month, 2 months around here, it's so dry. A lot of your creeks and streams are really, really down and they're in the level. So it's probably not going to be as deep as what you think it is. And you jump off in there and you're probably going to hit the bottom. And I can tell you from firsthand knowledge from some different emergencies and events that I've gotten tied up with throughout the years across the county, a lot of our creeks and streams, they have things in them that potentially going to hurt you if you dive in there, such as a road sign, a bicycle, or whatever. People they've stolen items and they've gotten what they want and what they don't want. They've taken it to the creek down the road and thrown it off in the creek because it goes under the water and they can't nobody find it now. Until you go down there and decide to go swimming, and you dive in and hit your head on the corner of a stop sign.
I think one of the things too that oftentimes I've heard folks that's in the business like you are, that'll say that folks take for granted this idea, and it looks great to decide, well, let's go down to the local creek or to the local pond and go fishing. But they don't consider, here's these kids with fishing poles, which all looks good in the magazines, but then all of a sudden somebody slips into that pond. Yeah. And it may be an old irrigation pond that may be extremely deep. How many, sometimes do you think about that and think, how do we even get them out at that point? I mean, that's just amazing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are oblivious to what, all they see is a body of water, and it would be cool to walk out in this, but a lot of irrigation ponds were dug. I mean, they're, you got just a little bit of the edge there, and it kind of goes right straight down for 8, 10, 12 foot, or, so you walk out there just a little bit, and all of a sudden you slip down that edge, and if you can't swim, and even in, some ponds that we've had boaters turn over in ponds and got drowned. But a pond that the water may not be real deep or you can swim, but yet there's a lot of moss and grass in it and things of that nature that as you're trying to swim, you're already panicking where, okay, I've been out in my boat and the boat's turned over and I'm panicking because of that. And, you're trying to swim, but yet you've got all this grass and weeds and stuff that's dragging you down and pulling you down. And before you know it, you've just exerted all of your energy and just exhausted, and you can't swim no more.
And the sad thing often that you read in newspaper articles and others over the years, where folks that do that, by the time your folks get there that are trained to get you out, again, minutes is a matter of life and death.
It is. Minutes are a matter of life and death. And let me circle back just a little bit when we were talking about swimming pools earlier, and somebody diving in a swimming pool, and if they've hit their head on the bottom and now they're playing the neck, back injuries, things of that nature. Don't try and drag that person out of the pool because you may create more damage for them, cause more harm. But if you can get in the pool with them, get them rolled over, get them just floating on their back, when we get there, we'll actually get in the pool with them and get them out, utilize a backboard or something of that nature to get them out. Somebody that's got a potential neck injury, back injury, just try and roll them over, keep them flat, floating on water, keep your head above water, and call us, get us there to do the rest of it.
I want to kind of transition to something that I read an article, and this was July 2021 data. Of course, the data's not in for July to now to 2022, right. But it was interesting because what struck me is that according to the information here, North Carolina leads the country in snake bites. And the other thing that was interesting is a county that's not very far from us, Wake County, leads the state in the number of snake bites per capita in Wake County. Do you guys get a lot of calls for snake bites? And should you, if you've been bitten by a snake, let's start from literally the grassroots level.
Yeah.
What should we know about snake bites?
Fortunately, we don't get a lot of calls about snake bites. I think a lot of people that get bit by a snake, they may go personal vehicle to the emergency room and don't necessarily call the ambulance. But you know, one thing that if you get bit by a snake, one major thing is don't try and take the snake to the hospital with you. You know, let's try and identify it. If you can get a picture of it at a safe distance, you know, try and get a picture of it and take that with you. But, you know, don't try and catch snakes. You may get bit again or somebody else may get bit. But don't
whether he's got his head on or not, still
right,
don't care.
Yeah. You know, but I think, you know, a couple things with snake bites. If you get bit by a snake, immediately go ahead and start trying to loosen anything that's constricting on you. If you got, you know, bit on the hand or arm, you got rings on, take your rings off. Your watches, take your watches off. You know, constricting something that may constrict you. You don't want to have that on there and then that limb go to swelling up and then you're not be able to get it off. So do that. You know, the main thing is another main thing is to stay calm. You know, and I think back used to people would say, well, you need to put a constricting band above where the snake bite was to help slow down the venom in the bloodstream. No, just try to stay calm.
That looked good in the old westerns that we saw on TV.
Yeah. And cutting it open and trying to suck the venom out.
No.
Don't do none of that. You know, just kind of let it free bleed. If it will bleed, let it bleed for a few seconds, you know, before you just try and take some soapy water, wash it, clean it off. You know, and obviously seek medical attention if you go to having any type of shortness of breath or, you know, major swelling or things of that nature. Because if it is a venomous snake, you will need medical treatment at the hospital.
What happens, again, like you said, a lot of folks, and that's a good thing, to go on to the hospital as soon as possible. I hadn't thought about getting the stuff off your arms or rings and so forth. But if you didn't get a picture of the snake or you can't identify the snake, when you get to the hospital, are they able to, will they go ahead and treat you? They
will. They'll go ahead and treat you, which I think the hospital, all hospitals across the state, they've got access to antivenoms. You know, and I think one of the main things is going to be to treat your signs and symptoms that are ongoing at the time, you know, depending on how bad you are or how severe you are. But like I said, the Sampson Regional's got access to antivenoms, just like every hospital across the state does.
Does that go for any other kind of animal bite as well? Because, you know, we have folks who are out playing with their pets and their dogs and their cats, or you might not be playing with your next door neighbor's dog or cat, but he might want to play with you and you get, you know, snagged or bitten. How critical is that? Yeah,
we've actually had a few calls over the last few years of dog bites, and I think you know, we've had a couple where dog bites have gotten a hold of small kids, and I don't think it was, you know, I don't know the situation totally, but I don't think, you know, probably the dog didn't mean anything by it, potentially.
Being a dog.
Just being a dog, a kid being a kid, dog being a dog, you know. So I think that's things that we, you know, and a lot of people say, well, you know, my dog would never do anything like that. Well, we don't know what that kid may do to that dog to provoke it, you know, unintentionally, you know, and the dog just react, and you know, so we need to be cautious with kids and dogs, and you know, just be aware that just because we think that it won't happen, it potentially could happen.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us today. We're coming up on the last few seconds here of the show. If there's anything you've got in maybe 10 seconds here, I'll let you tell us what you want us to know, telephone numbers or contact information.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on again. I think the main thing is, you know, if ever in doubt and you think you need some help, feel free to call 911 and get us out there. You know, we'd rather be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for everything you do, and for all those people that do the service, that work for folks in these rural counties are to be commended. And we didn't get into everything from supply chain to employment, but we'll get that next time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here as we talk about vital issues facing you, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.